listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Lab with Genifer. The lovely Miss Jen is out today, so it's just me, Tamar, and a couple friends of mine. First off, we have my very dear friend, business partner, Darwin Millard.
How's it going, everybody?
And then Sam, he is usually on the production side of things. Today he is joining us to ask some questions.
Yeah, we're going to ask questions today, everybody. This is a question day. And so I just wanted to start by, introducing you guys. Like, what is your background in this, and in the science industry, in the cannabis industry?
For sure. Well, I am a mechanical engineer, and I specialize in mechanical and solvent-based extraction methods for separating botanical constituents from plant material. And in this case, I've been spending the last 8 years working with cannabis. I started in industry with my good friend Nick T, nice. Making water hash, and since then,
that's where I met him.
I've been, awesome. Fully dedicated to it ever since. Basically, been consuming extract ever since. And I've recently been putting a lot of research into solvent-based extraction methods, alcohol, CO2, and then working with Tamar to make some good medicine. I started a couple companies working here, the Colorado Bubble Company and Colorado Extract Service.
I've never heard of those, but that's awesome.
And most recently, Tamar and I were working with Dixie Elixirs.
Right.
But now we are currently available to do consulting on the free market, and we're really excited to help educate everybody in industry.
That's great. That's what we need, education, proper education. I mean, everyone's educating everybody, but when you have the background that you guys have, you're a little bit more credible.
Well, and it's also we're at the very beginning of a lot of the scientific, case studies to back up what a lot of us know anecdotally. That includes safety as well. So I always say err on the side of caution. And then when you have the scientific fact to, back up what you're saying, then you can take the next step.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to ask some questions.
Okay.
And we're going to focus these questions on hash. Because we like hash. Everyone likes hash, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like blowing up here. We've got, this butane hash oil. And so I guess let me ask you guys, what is butane hash oil? Do you know?
A butane extract is an easy way to make extract from cannabis. It's similar to ethanol or CO2, but BHO, is very, very trendy right now with the wax and shatter that's out there on the market.
Is it a coincidence that it kind of works? Because everyone has tap water, but that doesn't work. You can't do the process with tap water.
As far as using that as a kind of extraction medium? Well, you could use tap water, but if you're going to make water hash correctly, you should use filtered, very, very clean water. The solvent you choose to use and the impurities or lack thereof in it really affect the extract.
Right.
And water is definitely, obviously, one of the safer.
Consume that every day.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't consume butane every day.
Well, in the case of using water for making extracts from cannabis, it's not an actual extraction, it's a separation. So you're using that as a suspension media to essentially isolate and separate those resin glands and then collect them later through, various screen sizes.
And then would the THC content go up and all the other kind of like CBD content, all that would go up?
In water hash?
Yes.
Well, and we briefly, when we spoke to Tara Cannabinoids last week, we did briefly discuss how water hash is essentially the unadulterated form of cannabinoids because they are found in the resin glands. They're protected by that sac.
Just trichomes.
And they are actually molecularly bound to cannabinoids as well. That's why water hash can not only be really potent and strong, but it has that really multi flavors, different types of smells, tastes, and that really goes to the actual true herbal synergy of terpenoids and cannabinoids working together. And so you can get those different ratio profiles, and you can really feel the differences in effect as well.
Yeah, like each layer has a different texture and everything that you can essentially accentuate by with the right type of extraction with good water hash.
Yeah, and I'm sure that is. I mean, just from hearing that, it's like I learned from seeing it, and it's like, oh my gosh, all your big words, and I don't have a dictionary in front of me. But that's crazy. So I have all of these questions written down from the past week. So, have you ever made butane hash oil, or have you been around it?
Me and Tamar are both anti-butane, so we would definitely advocate against butane, but if it had to be used, then it would be used in a certified closed system. As something to be ASME certified or ISO certified, something like that.
If you're going to use butane.
Right.
And the reason we used butane last week, it's exciting, it's available. And it's fun, I guess.
And it works.
Yeah, and it works. Right, and it works, which is a little unfortunate.
And there's no real scientific data specific to what's happening right now. There's safety case studies on, say, working in an environment. Your job, you have gaseous butane in the atmosphere. How many parts per million can you be exposed to for how many hours a day?
Every time I fill up this torch, I'll hold my breath. Because if I ever breathe, I'll smell it.
And it's scary. You look at these young people like Tara, young, relatively healthy.
Pulmonary
embolism. And that's from, I think, what she's saying, 6-7 months of working straight with butane as an extraction solvent. So the dangers are there. They are real.
Haven't you heard some really terrible things?
Well, yesterday, Darwin and I, we went up to Boulder. We both went to school up there, so we love visiting, and
cool.
we saw a very good friend of ours.
It's beautiful there.
It is, at this time of year especially. But, we were just, because he's anti-butane, he smokes water hash and vaporizes the amazing bud that he grows.
Yeah.
He's a very talented grower.
Awesome.
And, he was just talking to us about some recent articles that he had seen. Actually, I think it was someone that worked at his dispensary. And it was young people, similar to Tara with her pulmonary embolism, but they were actually having open heart surgery. Ventricular fibrillation, which is essentially the heart arrhythmia, which can lead to sudden cardiac arrest. He was also saying stroke, and essentially what it is the added molecules in the open blasting of butane.
Which is easy.
Right.
The cheap, readily available butane that's out there on the market.
And it's still, it's very much still in demand as far as, there are more people talking about NButane and higher quality solvents.
Like N-tane, and is that different from butane?
Well, it's essentially the butane invector and other types of over-the-counter lighter refill cans. It has a mixture of butane and other enantiomers of butane, but it also has added molecules because butane is odorless and colorless. And so they add these molecules, I believe it's hydrogen sulfide and mercaptans, which is a type of sulfur thiol. They add those for that smell, that stinky, so you can smell it. It's a safety factor.
Oh, okay. Is it negative to your health in any way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those can act as bonding agents. So it doesn't matter their molecular weight does have a lot to do with evaporation, obviously. The heavier molecules, doesn't matter. You just cannot evaporate them. Right. These are lighter molecules, but they're bonding agents. So they can essentially bind to the cannabinoids, and so they're left in the extract. Right now, as far as residual solvents, we need more testing in that realm. But just because we can't right now test that they're there, molecularly it is very likely that they are. So we should be safe, right? Well, these binding agents can actually act like plaque in the arteries. So what is essentially happening is if you're consuming butane a lot, you're accumulating these molecules in your tissues, in your arteries, and then, pulmonary, the embolism is essentially a piece of that plaque broke off and, Tara's lung collapsed. In the case of these kids having heart attacks, similarly, a piece breaks off, goes to your heart. Your brain, it's a stroke. It's very scary, and,
But that's all contributed to the butane extracted. Like you couldn't make that from like water or isopropyl.
Well, I would just clarify that would be attributed to an open extraction of butane, and specifically from over-the-counter butane sources like lighter fuel and everything like that. Your cheap over-the-counter brands that you can just use to do your open blasting and things like that.
So
that's the most dangerous.
You would be a lot more comfortable then if even the butane Vector over-the-counter, if it was in a closed loop.
Well, no, because butane again,
butane is
Vector,
butane.
that type of thing it's lighter fuel. It's not. It's not a solvent used to make medical products. It has all the additives that Tamar was talking about to make it so that you can, if it were to leak, you can smell that there's a leak and know you need to run away because there might be an explosion. And essentially, what she's talking about with those bonding agents and those waxy particulates that are there inside those lighter fuel canisters, there's actually been anecdotal evidence now, even presented by the blasters themselves, with residue left over on the insides of their glass tubes and on all of their product that they're cleaning away after all the butane is done. And it's essentially the residue that's left from the actual butane itself. And those materials is what, after you're smoking it, is what's building up inside your lungs and essentially just coating your arteries, just like if you were going to McDonald's every day.
But I'd say
a bit scary.
Worse, because it's, butane is an organic solvent. We were talking about
that's
this.
Because I Googled everything. Wikipedia page, you look at the references, make sure they're not bullshit. And then, it says it's an organic compound. I'm like, oh, well, it's organic. It comes from Earth.
But it's right. And so and we were talking about this before, it's the literal, definition of the word organic, as in it's carbon and hydrogen made from organic atoms. So, what we were discussing is butane that has additives, similar to, we had talked about Rick Simpson oil and naphtha and what is left behind. Very similar. They're both utilized in the petrochemical industry, gasoline.
Yeah, they're not intended for making solvents or
human consumption.
Yeah. That's just too scary.
And that's the other thing is there's a lot of, it's generally recognized as safe. Well, you have to actually dig a bit deeper, and the GRAS status is for being used as a propellant for, say, like PAM or deodorant.
Yeah, it can't be an ingredient. Like butane can't be an ingredient on your label.
Yeah.
And Tara was talking about how the synthetic organic synthesis of molecules is just a regular part of life. So butane was changed to, I think it was BTHQ, which is a stabilizer, but it still has its roots. It's a butane molecule. It's a bit tweaked. But as far as these FDA approvals, therefore, as we were talking, a certain amount of exposure to the gas or a certain amount of ingestion of the liquid. The studies of inhalation of liquid, on the extreme side, are kids literally just inhaling the liquid from the can directly.
Butane.
Right,
yeah,
of the over
essentially.
Yeah, that's. I actually met someone yesterday who said that she did that a long time ago, and I was just like, oh my god.
And that actually statistically, the huffing of butane is the number one cause of solvent-related death. So why would you choose to use a solvent that is that dangerous?
Well, I wish someone would have told the city council or someone that said, hey, we got to regulate how we make our hash oil. And
let's be honest,
Absolutely.
If you look at nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, if we really want this to last, And we really want to compete with nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals because essentially, I will say this again, I think cannabinoids can replace many pharmaceuticals. You know,
They have for me.
Everybody should consume it, and not like on a an excessive consumption basis,
Right.
but like a daily vitamin.
Exactly.
And if you look at pharmaceutical applications, I mean, as far as butane being used as a solvent, it's more likely to find CO2 because you can actually regulate that or standardize that the growing process for the plant, but then the extraction process as well. If you use that efficient of a extraction with the CO2 subcritical. And as far as nutraceutical, pharmaceutical, all we've seen is CO2 applications. On the herbalism side, ethanol is still that's an organic, safe, food grade solvent. Same with olive oil or other types of fat, cocoa, etc.
And water steam distillation as well.
Oh, okay.
So I think we're going to take a break and then we can continue in a little bit.
Blue Sage Microbes unveils the ultimate in superior soil, Ideal Soil, a 16-quart bag of the best growing soil ever engineered. Superior plant health and vitality is a direct result of the structure and chemistry of your soil. How good is your growing soil? Is your growing soil really balanced? How do you know? Well, Blue Sage Microbes has a newly designed growing soil that is the most advanced growing medium ever offered for cannabis cultivation. This is the only brand in the marketplace that provides growers with an ideal soil structure designed to work specifically with their cultivation systems. You will have your best grow results ever. Call now for a special introductory offer, 888-959-8551, or log on to bluesagemicrobes.com and experience a new level in growing. That's 888-959-8551.
Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Canisher understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Canisher has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at canisher.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to Cannabis Radio, and we're talking about hash over here.
Okay, so so we were talking about commercial butane and the added dangers of all those additives.
Of open blasting, over-the-counter butane.
Yes, outside, inside, which you shouldn't do.
Yes, right. Oh, and actually, before we move on to the cleaner butane, I just found in February of this year, FEMA issued an advisory actually about open butane extractions and how hash oil explosions increasing across the U.S.
Right.
It qualifies as a public safety hazard.
Right. Well,
I mean,
imagine.
It's extremely dangerous as far as open extractions for the workers as well. And I mean, talking to Tara, I mean, it really kind of hits home when you see in front of you.
And she was talking about using a closed system that was, in R&D development at the time.
Okay.
And it was leaking, an NButane source. And and that's the key difference here is that over-the-counter butane, it has that smell.
Yes.
Those are the mercaptans, the things that make it smell so you can know that it's leaking.
That it's there, yes.
NButane doesn't have those smells.
And butane.
And so, which is the chemical, the clean chemical version you can get from, like Airgas here or, a chemical supplier, essentially. And what she had the risk of you couldn't smell that leak. So at any point there could have been a spark or anything like that, and there could have been a large explosion. Yeah.
And you bring a good point too. Is it was an R&D model that was leaking. Well, if you're going to use an extraction machine, it should be certified, and we can get into that as far as
regulated
closed systems. But a lot of people talk about NButane and how it is a clean solvent. Okay, and a lot of that is, I'd say, a bit misconstrued because butane is still butane. It is primarily used in gasoline. In fact, I know that people are using isobutane and propane and other types of hydrocarbons. Well, when you add butane and propane and other types of hydrocarbons, you actually get liquefied petroleum gasoline, essentially. So as far as using that for a natural, non-toxic medicine, it's kind of counterintuitive. And Rick Simpson likes to say, oh, well, naphtha is easy to get, it's cheap, and the cannabinoids themselves will protect you. But obviously that is not the case. I mean, cannabinoids are amazing, but imagine if every time you ingest them, you're also ingesting and sequestering a equally toxic.
It doesn't go away. It's going somewhere.
And so, as far as NButane, there are still issues there. We don't know enough about ingestion via the inhalation route of liquid butane. Not just liquid butane, but it's gone through a chemical process. Now it's part of the extract,
attached to all the cannabinoids.
Right. Yeah, bonded molecularly.
And
Yes.
in small amounts, people say, oh, you get butane from your lighter.
Right. Yes,
it's in your
of course.
food, etc. But why are you adding to that amount of toxic substance in your... I mean, with NButane...
But we vacuum purge it.
Well, and so tiny amounts of butane are still there, right? And that's why we do need more residual solvent testing. But even small amounts, dabbers, it's every day, multiple times a day.
Not me.
But it sequesters in your system.
Yeah.
And actually burning of butane releases a toxic nitrogen dioxide. Where do you think that goes? That goes straight into your lungs. So, I mean, as far as any kind of residual butane, it is not a non-toxic substance. Okay, if you're using ethanol, olive oil, coconut butter, those type of natural sourced solvents, it's okay if there's residual solvent in there because it's not toxic to the body. So I think that is the biggest distinction is just do a bit more digging about the solvent. And actually, if there are people with stories of butane-related, ailments, or if you know of anybody, I think we really need to get the word out there more.
Yes.
It is extremely dangerous, and we're young and we're trying to do this for health. I mean, who wants to have a heart attack or a stroke from
Something
recreationally getting high, or whether you're doing? I mean, what's scariest is imagine an immune-compromised person doing this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as you asked if have we done butane, we haven't. There are correct ways to do it, and Darwin can go into more of the closed kind of extraction units and the certification and kind of what you need to do to use butane. And what's the point of using pharmaceutical grade solvent if you're not using a pharmaceutical grade process, right? So as far as some of the, I don't know if you wanted to go over some of the models out there, or if you just wanted to generically.
You had mentioned vacuum purging and everything. It's like, but how much do they vacuum purge it? And for things like that, there's a huge debate on how long you do it.
Yes.
Do you do it for 5 minutes, or do you do it for 10 minutes, or do you do multiple different sessions? Do you vacuum purge a couple of times? It's like, when you really look at that on a scale and do any digging or research on evaporative processes and making sure solvents are removed, we're talking like 12 to 18 hours, easily 24, depending on the amount of solution you're reducing. Like, it's just ridiculous, some of these short vacuum purges that are apparently making everything clean.
Dispensary purge.
And I mean, who's to say that? Because before Darwin and I left Dixie, we did utilize some of Jen's residual solvent testing. And it's the nature of cannabinoid extract. It's very viscous and sticky. Pure cannabinoids are crystallized, but when you're in that 60-90%, it's kind of like honey molasses. If you look at that on the molecular level, it's essentially a solid matrix of cannabinoids, maybe trapping 1 or 2 molecules of the solvent.
It's kind of like fiberglass.
Everywhere. So you have, as far as purging, more surface area obviously is better, But Darwin and I were discussing this, maybe even needing multiple types or multiple purge times. Breaking apart those solid matrices to extract the whatever trapped residual solvent is there. Some added step to actually get it. Or, again, you can use a non-toxic solvent, because just the nature of cannabinoids, you're always going to have some residual solvent until the technology, advances to the point. Because they're water hash, we can end with that. But water hash, if done correctly, is very safe. No residual solvent because it's water.
That's great. And then, because you've turned me on to water hash, and Tara last week, totally converted me. But we have all invested in these dab rigs, these oil rigs, and, I've only been able to dab a water hash, bubble hash from Select Nicotine at the Dabs Denver. And I was looking at it, and I was like, that's exactly what you sell. It's water hash. And he gave me a dab of it, and it was awesome. So what makes something dabbable?
I mean, that's a really open question. I mean, if it's coming from water hash, you really need to take care of everything from the very, very beginning. You need to have good genes. You need to have a good grower. You need to have a very good environment that produces leaves with a lot of good, high-quality resin glands on those leaves. And then you need to be able to meticulously isolate those high-quality, density leaves that have those good trichomes on them away from all the other material, and then fresh freeze those so that you can essentially keep them in their unadulterated, uncured stage from when they're essentially trimmed off the material. And then you process those, within a week to 2 weeks at max while it's freezing, so that you don't, have a freezer burn or any ice crystals go and end up rupturing your resin glands. And that produces amazing quality water hash that is easily as good as any solvent-based extract out there. It'll smoke like any oil. It's
leave no residue.
Yeah, and essentially because, as Tamar mentioned before, they're unadulterated cannabinoids. You have the terpenes and the flavonoid profile is all there. There hasn't been anything stripped away. You're not. You don't have to worry about. I guess when you put the lighter to it is when everything starts to degrade. You are essentially the first step in degradation.
Well, and also you don't have the added chlorophyll or other pulled molecules, perhaps with other solvents. You're essentially water hash done correctly. You knock off the trichome. You have the oil inside, and then you may have the wax, the outer membrane. So if you have just those elements, essentially it is an oil. Right? It's dabbable. My only recommendation would be the heat, which we talked about last week as far as...
Yeah, we usually get it to about red, and then we stop.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere that hot is just kind of ridiculous. I mean, 350, 400 is plenty hot to vaporize your bud or to essentially get any of those chemicals into a gas form.
You don't want to... completely disintegrate the cannabinoid molecule either. Right. So if you're burning that hot, who's to say that you're not, because cannabinoids are already hard to get into your system, bioavailability, etc., and smoking as well, you exhale a lot of wasted cannabinoid. But if you're also essentially taking that vapor to a heat that's so hot that you even get less active medicine, you've
burned it.
Right. And so I think Dr. Raber, with the workshop in California, he did that, the experiment with the artificial lung and inhalation of cannabis laced with pesticides, and how much you actually inhale or ingest into your body of the amount of pesticide that was in the cannabis. And it was like 70-80%, I think. So imagine... if we could do, because as far as I know, there's very few extract case studies of burning the extract, using it as medicine. It's, it's still kind of the plant. If we could actually, say, take a dab vapor, right, put in an artificial lung, compare it to water hash with, say, Hemp Wick, etc., and then compare the constituents of the actual vapor cloud, and then we could show, oh, well, wow, this one has a decreased amount of cannabinoids, or look what else we find in this versus this, and just do direct comparison.
Yeah, it'd also be really interesting to find out if there's like a molecular tag essentially associated to that bonding with the solvent you've used. Like, is THC made, or extract made from alcohol, water, CO2, butane? Do those all have the same molecular effect, or do they affect you in different ways? And then if you can identify that tag and find it, then if you can really prove it's there, then that really shows that no matter if you don't have any more residual butane left, you still have molecularly bound butane. And so if you had the choice of molecularly bound CO2, H2O, or ethanol, I would take the H2O or the CO2 anytime.
Awesome. And I think we're going to take another break, and we can continue and get back.
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
Tired of dispensary hopping? Trying to find quality meds? Look no further and get to know Greenworks. Our shops are stocked with over 20 strains of organically grown meds, including R4, the highest tested CBD strain in Colorado. Yes, we back up our quality with testing. While Greenworks offers only the highest quality meds, we don't believe in high prices, with eighths ranging from $20 to $40 and ounces capped at $175. With 2 centers in Denver and 1 in Glenwood Springs, we're likely closer than you think. Call 303-647-5210 to find the location nearest you.
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
Hello, and we're back. So we were answering Sam's question about what is what is dabbable, right? What makes an extract dabbable?
Yeah, because I've definitely had hash that is not dabbable, and I do it, and it catches flame.
It chars, right? Right. So cellulose, right? Imagine catching that cellulose on fire, essentially with high heat,
or concentrations of wax, just like if you've ever burned like a fat, it does that char, and it has you're left with a residual residue all over. So that's kind of the answer to your question of what's dabbable, is that you're looking to have no residue left over, something that completely vaporizes and goes into, it's combusted when you smoke it.
Yeah. So, and even I think Chris has showed me, because I have these little, I caved. I was going to quit, but I did buy a little bit of butane hash oil. But it looks really good. It's from the growing kitchen, and it looks really nice, even though you shouldn't judge it on that. But when I dab that, it's like, there has been stuff where at the very end you see like there's something left. It's like ash. It's like, oh my gosh, what's that? But not with this. At the same time, though, you can't go to any dispensary and get CO2 or water hash that is equally the same consistency and the same price. And so that's why butane's so available.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a lot easier to kind of narrow down the parameters and what you need to do, and it's a lot cheaper of an investment to get started. So, that's where I guess really the whole, if you're going to do a gas extraction, you should be doing a system that's certified and something that's
regulated.
Something that's safe, that that when you use it, it's not gonna, that you're not going to spring a leak and it's not going to blow up on you or something like that.
Definitely the closed loop systems look a lot cooler, and I'm sure that's the way to go.
And and a lot of those expense you out of being able to produce in that market.
Right.
And so that's why, your options out there range from anywhere from 7,000 to your 30, tens of thousands to do a closed system with butane. And the systems are cheaper, and you can get those because it's under less pressure and less temperature. Essentially, you can do it all cold. You just need to keep the butane warm so your system doesn't freeze, and you don't need to worry about high pressure. So there's no, safety rating there, essentially associated with the materials you have to source. So I guess that's really where you get priced out of being able to use more safe, more green solvents like CO2. Because essentially, to be able to really properly use CO2, you can't use it in a gas form because it doesn't really do anything in its inert state. You have to manipulate its phases, start changing it into liquid, start pushing that into its supercritical stage or near critical state to essentially manipulate its extraction parameters and its capabilities. And to be able to do that, you really need to start spending money, and that's upwards of $100,000, $200,000.
And that's why we don't have it.
And that's why CO2, and especially smoking grade CO2, isn't readily available on the market, just because the people who have spent the money to be able to get those systems here in Colorado either don't know how to use them, or the systems themselves really can't live up to what what they're really needing to do. There are good systems out there that you can get. An Apex is a good system that you can use with, and an Eden is another one. Those are basically the cheap starter systems to get into CO2 extraction here in Colorado.
Where do you go and buy CO2? And where does that come in a can?
You mean gas? Yeah, absolutely. You get from Air Gas, Wagner Welding, same suppliers that you would get your medical grade butane, or your NButane.
There's no medical grade butane, is there?
No.
Yeah,
watch your mouth.
But you can get medical grade CO2 because it's needed for all sorts of different applications. So it has to be clean.
Right, you're right.
Beverage grade essentially, so that you can consume it. That's what it's designed for.
That's crazy.
And so to utilize it properly, it takes a little bit of money.
What is the definition of solvent?
Well, I guess a solvent would basically be anything you can use to dissolve a constituent from some other source of material, and can be able to then remove it from that material and then can isolate it later
via molecular binding, essentially.
Water is the universal solvent.
Is the universal, because everyone says solventless and they use water.
Well, that's again because it goes back to the suspension medium is what you're using the water for. Because in this case, what you're isolating are they're hydrophobic, so they're not actually dissolving in the water. They're being suspended by the water. Whereas,
and you could still call it solventless.
Right. Well, because you're not using the water as a solvent, whereas in the other cases you are physically dissolving the chemicals from the plant material.
Okay, I understand that. And you couldn't. Well, that's not true because we just said you could, but it'd be a lot more money, and it's not available. And so if you're going to use water, it's just water hash or bubble hash, and Select Nicotine would do that.
Yeah, and right now in the state, he basically runs the game. Absolutely.
Yeah, he definitely does. And I was going to go get that, but they were all out, so I got myself some chatter. Sorry. So what other questions do you have, for me and, for yourself?
Well, as far as questions for you, how long have you been here in Colorado?
It's been a year.
Okay.
Yeah, August 14th was my year, checkpoint.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Was that an exciting year?
It was pretty awesome. It is quick.
Right.
Super fast.
Definitely.
And I guess the other thing there with CO2 is that, really the reason why you haven't seen it there is because it's difficult to use. There's a little bit of trial and error involved in getting CO2 to produce efficiently. And when you spent $100,000, $200,000 on something and it doesn't produce, then it becomes a paperweight really quickly. And so you need to have someone who knows how to use it, someone who's done the time to really figure out, what does CO2 do and why do you use it? And what are its capabilities? Because it's not just, hook up a can and blast through a tube and go.
Right.
You have to really dial in and know what your chemicals are, what you're trying to isolate, and whether or not you're using active or inactive trim, so that you're getting a commercial or recreational grade product. All of that comes down to what extraction parameters you're actually using to make sure that whether you're maintaining your terpene and flavonoid profile so that your extracts, when you get them out, will taste amazing and be everything that people are expecting when you smoke an extract. Because I guess that's the other thing there is that people don't get that from butane from CO2 right now, because the ones that are out there on the market just don't produce that same aesthetic appeal that they're used to.
Absolutely. And could you do, we have nug runs and bud runs with butane. Could you do that with CO2?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's all the same thing.
All the same.
It's all the same principle and everything like that, but essentially butane is the no pressure type of system, low pressure style, and CO2 is a high pressure system. Okay. And because of that, the systems have to be regulated, they have to be certified to make sure that if a manufacturer makes that for you, it doesn't blow up on you and kill you, because they're liable for that, as well as the employer of the employee who has now blown up. Yeah. All of that type of thing. And so, I mean, that's why, again, when it comes to when you're using a closed system that you've purchased and that has been certified by whatever agency, you need to make sure that your employees are safe. And if you've spent the money, then it makes sense to go with a cheaper source solvent, which would be CO2. And it just takes a little bit more time and effort to learn how to use it, so that you can get your CO2 wax and your CO2 shatter to come out in your golden yellow and your reds and orange in color.
I want to see that. So I wrote down how should dabs be taken, and when I mean dabs, I mean butane hash oil. The oils you heat up the nail with this vector torch here, but is that really what we should be doing?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of alternative methods of smoking it. I definitely think Tamar agree that you don't need to get the nail as hot.
Yeah, because we usually stop at red.
And that's the thing, is when metal is red, then it is molecularly changed. The fact that it's red hot is...
And this is titanium.
And that's the other thing there, is you really need to make sure the material you're using is safe. I don't exactly know why titanium was the one that was chosen.
Maybe because it won't rust or something.
I guess the only point is there that there's no food grade metal. Like, things aren't really certified that way. But when you
like copper or something.
But when you go to metals that are used in like food and industries and things like that touch food, or people do things like that with, it's aluminum or stainless steel.
Right. Okay.
And so I guess I question why it wasn't a stainless steel nail out of some good 304 quality or 316 grade steel, that the consistency and the grade of metal. Versus that, and the titanium, so that you can just know your source material and make sure that when you heat it that hot, you're not releasing toxic vapors from the other metals that are in the alloy.
Yeah.
And lung tissue too is extremely sensitive. Besides the skin, the lungs are the second largest surface area as far as medicine delivery. So if you are inhaling repeatedly that heated of a vapor, what is it doing to all your, sensitive alveoli? The tiny bronchial tubes, the capillaries surrounding the alveoli. Over repeated time, right now we see all those images of people smoking tobacco, and then there's the biopsy of their lungs. Are there biopsies of butane lungs yet? It's worrisome. And as far as, I think we do need to ascertain and kind of figure out how hot, as Darwin was saying, is that metal safe? How hot does it get?
And there's different types of nails. There's a quartz nail.
Right.
And so...
I can see quartz crystal being a lot safer than using some type of random metal alloy. But I'm sure you can source good titanium. That's not to say that the nails aren't quality. It's just that to make sure that your source is always quality is you got to make sure that you've gotten C of A's on your material so that it's within your quality standards, to know that when someone heats it up, say that there's chromium inside the titanium alloy, and then when they heat that, they're going to get toxic chemicals coming off of there that they're going to inhale.
So I think we can take a break, and when we get back, we were discussing other forms of combustion.
Yeah.
So we can discuss that when we get back.
Independent Records and Videos has been your locally owned and operated choice for music, movies, and lifestyle accessories since 1978. Independent Records and Videos has 7 locations from Denver to Colorado Springs to Pueblo to serve your entertainment needs. Whether it's vinyl, CDs, DVDs, books, smoking accessories, or hundreds of other fun and fanciful items, Independent is ready and waiting to make your dreams come true. We are always buying, selling, and trading vinyl, CDs, books, and DVDs, so sell yours and buy ours. Independent Records and Videos, your entertainment headquarters. Check us out at beindependent.com or on Facebook.
iVita Wellness is committed to compassionate patient care while providing the highest quality medicine at an affordable price. At iVita Wellness, patients can get top shelf ounces for $150 every day. iVita Wellness also carries pharmaceutical grade pure CO2 oil. iVita Wellness is located in Uptown Denver on 1616 Pearl Street, open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us at 303-952-9150 or our website at www.ivitawellness.com. iVita Wellness is Denver's Compassionate Care Center.
The National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, and we are back. So we were talking about alternative ways to combust cannabinoids.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways.
We were talking about hemp wick. It is made with hemp, but you have the cellulose and then the beeswax that essentially you're lighting, and you're trying to take those things out of your dabbable extract, right? And you're inhaling them.
Yeah, and they smell like terrible incense.
And Darwin, anytime Matt and I use my hemp wick, he says it smells like candle. You know, and I can see because it's the beeswax is very waxy, you know. But
I do enjoy it. It's
like incense that's unflavored or unscented.
And so you
that's
do
true.
Right. You do have to kind of be aware of what else you're getting, right, with your heat source, whether it's super hot temperature,
like torch.
or beeswax hemp. I mean, I think you were talking about an e-nail. There's
e-nail, which is expensive, but I mean that's at the same time because you can set the temperature, which is great, but at the same time you're setting the temperature of a metal.
Is it actually like a nail with like a variable?
It's like a really cool looking cord attached to a big black box, and
So it's like the Silver Surfer thingy. It's a tabletop vaporizer.
And the cord, one plugs into the wall, the other one plugs. The other one is like it's attached to a nail, and the nail you just put.
You smoke extracts with that.
Yep, and you just dab it, and so that's when they have it at all of the competitions and the 710 cups because you have all these people, and you don't want to keep torching your stuff, so you just have this electric nail.
And I like the variable temperature, definitely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Except I don't know what metal they're using.
Right, and what is the correct temperature, right, for different extracts?
I see like 1080 all the time. 1080.
That seems ridiculous that you'd need to get it that hot.
I see it. I don't know why they chose that number.
And that's like, okay, so vaporizing of cannabis versus combusting of cannabis, different temperatures, right? Vaporizing is supposed to be safer because you're using a temperature before combustion, so that you're not actually combusting the cellulose and getting the potential pre-carcinogenic factors. With vaporizing, it would seem that it would kind of defeat the purpose if you're dialing up that temperature way high.
And how hot does when you use your lighter get? I mean, that seems to be sufficient, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that
just
I would
fire.
Just.
So I don't understand why thousands of degrees are anywhere necessary. Hundreds, sure, but that it just seems ridiculous that you would make vapor or the smoke that hot because you'd be burning it at that point. You have combusted it. Some would be in vapor form, but most of it you've now totally burned and then degraded it beyond its life cycle, and then you're just inhaling carbon.
Yeah.
Right, and so I mean, there's soldering type pens or ceramic kind of tools that you can use. Some get hot enough that you can just kind of hold it over whatever material and just use the latent heat. or I think some you actually touch it to whatever you're trying to combust.
Yeah, I've seen people, they use those heat guns. They get up to like 700 or 750 to 1500 degrees, guns. But they'll like hold their bud and then just heat steam it essentially and vaporize it that way.
That's cool.
You do magnifying glass.
Like a solar hit.
Yeah, basically.
UV. And we were talking about different types of vape pens that are on the market now.
Yeah.
There are some kinds that are essentially a nail with like a glass piece that you can. It replaces that kind of rig setup. You know, it kind of even has a similar shape to the top there, that metal piece, and you just drop your dose, and then when you push the button, it's heating to, you know, a certain vaporization temperature. Then you're able to vape your extract without combusting it, and it's extremely portable.
Yeah.
It kind of.
You know what?
So when
I don't like portable just because it's dry vapor and it hurts my throat. And so there's this Vape RX thing from, I don't know what company, but they made this thing, Vape RX, huge. You had it in it's a huge black machine, and at the top you would have your like ground joint. So you need a custom piece to go on top of that, and then you know it vapors up through there, and it's very strange. But we hit it. And
it's supposed to be kind of a less harsh type.
Yeah, I mean we used a Swagger Glass brought it in, and it was it didn't get like milky, you know, that's what we all want to see, and it didn't get like that at all, and it just tasted better, and you know.
See, and that's what I guess what we were talking about with Tamar there. I don't know if anybody went to the 710 Cup, but one of the booths there had an awesome little pen, vaporizer, vape pen. But it wasn't like any of the other models out there. It was essentially the nail that everybody's familiar with and the dome. And the dome piece you could slip on and off the nail. You just load your extract right into the nail, put the dome on, and press the button, and then it would fill.
That's cool.
And then you would smokers used to seeing that cloud would get that. You'd have that aesthetic appeal to know that what you've just inhaled actually did work. So you can see it in your dome, and then you inhale it, and it gives you the same feel of your rig, but it's much smaller, more compact, a lot more discreet. It's similar to kind of how the open works in some of those new oil pens that are out there that let you put the oil right in there, but it gives you that aesthetic appeal of being able to see it.
And it's glass versus plastic as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and I have, you know, the Atmos, which is like a metal, and you know I also have the Cloud, which is plastic, and I definitely prefer a metal because I've seen burning plastic inside.
And most of the new vape pens now, at least the ones for oil, have ceramic dishes or metal dishes that you're loading, and then that's where the heat coil goes through.
Yeah, I like pens because they're, you know, discreet, and you know, but it's just I really do prefer to have that filtered through water.
Well, and it's also someone I was talking to recently, and I hadn't really thought about it in this type of light before, but as far as the whole rig setup, and say someone is preparing a dab for you and it's maybe stabbing it for you, etc. It's not as, what he was saying is it kind of loses that social appeal of passing around a pipe or a joint, kind of ease, and you know what I mean, because it's big and bulky. I mean, some of them that you see, I mean, they're beautiful.
And they take, you know, you gotta take care of them.
Yeah, giant and huge, and seemingly cumbersome to carry around.
You know, I know a glass blower who would say, you know, taking a dab from a big rig is not what you want. You know, the smaller the better. The less air, the better.
Right.
So that's
just think of how much you're wasting too, right?
Yeah. It gets all stale, I'm sure. You get some smoke
and
over there.
Again, that's why these little pins are basically ideal, because you only need that one little hit anyway, and so it's perfectly sized.
On the go, yeah, you're right, absolutely right about that one.
So yeah, there are definitely alternatives, and we just asked to maybe just think about it in a different light. And science is about safety. I mean, I said this before. Cannabis is extremely non-toxic and safe.
So good for you. Super
we don't want to do anything to negate the beneficial, you know, effects and
make it into something that's toxic.
Yes. Now I've seen videos of something like what I have here, with like the top being how it is with the nail, and it being an e-nail, which of course I can't get, and a screen that you'd have in a hash pipe. You put it on top. you put your hash. It doesn't have to be butane hash, and it'll bubble and it goes down, and you can dab it. And so, I mean, it looked proper, exactly how you guys are explaining it, without dabbing it. But of course, people like me, most people don't have $1,500 to drop on something that isn't in production.
Right.
And e-nails, you can't get e-nails. They're not making them.
Yeah.
Is that how much they are?
Some guy who had them, is like, yeah, $1,500, but they don't make them like retail. You have to know the guy who's making it and be his buddy.
Well, I mean, the guys at the Cannabis Cup, they were selling their little, dome vape pen for like $60, and the vape pen accessory just fits on any generic battery. They were selling that separate for just $20.
Wow.
I mean, that's basically the same thing, but without the $1,500 expense.
And I think they're customizable too, right?
Yeah, they had different color tips and basically whatever you wanted.
That's cool. There is the Electro Dabber as well.
Electro
Dabber. And I've hit that. That's definitely affordable, and definitely you can get that at any head shop.
Is that a smaller type vape set, or is it?
It's like just like what I've got here, except it's not domeless.
Okay.
So you do have a dome, and it's a nail, so I don't know what type of metal or titanium is used.
Okay.
And it just connects. It's very simple. Connects right into the wall, and it heats up. But it doesn't. You can't program it, so I don't know how hot it gets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't read the manual. I don't know if it says it.
I guess that's a new advantage with some of the new vape pens on the market is they have the adjustable voltage that allows you to make the hotter or cooler depending on the extract you're trying to smoke.
Yeah, that would be. Someone's got to invent that.
Well, I think they have some.
Yeah, no, you can get those right now.
Some variable ones.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that's great then. Problem solved.
All right. So I think we have a couple minutes left. Did you have any?
Well,
any questions?
Or are there any other people online? Are they chatting about us?
Well, I know there's a lot of consistencies. Why is that? Why do you have a full melt? Why do you have a shatter? And the reason called shatter is because it's like glass.
Oh, well, that's really easy because, I mean, cannabinoids, when they're isolated from everything else, they're a crystallized resin. And so what you're making a shatter there is you're making a polymer sheet of cannabinoids.
That's exactly what I heard a long time ago.
That's all it is.
And other constituents as well, too. As Darwin was saying, the purer you get, the closer you get to just cannabinoids only, which is almost pharmaceutical grade, right? Except with organic concentrations. Then you get powder. But
yeah.
If you add the other elements, they can make it shatter. They can make it goopy. Waxes will make it kind of like the butter.
And if you've seen Breaking Bad, I know it's a terrible reference or whatever, but when they're filling the trays and they have to let it harden and crack it up, and essentially, and they have the 96+% or whatever that is. That's really what cannabinoids will look like at that type of concentration when you have them in their whole plant constituent basis. Where you haven't essentially refined out as many other non-constituents that you can, but you aren't isolating specific cannabinoids. So you're not looking for 99% CBD. You're just, but you're looking at a mix of cannabinoid, a lattice structure.
So you still have the synergy there, but then that's a question of pharmaceutical versus pharmacognosy, which is herbal pharmaceuticals. You're losing the synergy of terpenoids, flavonoids. Obviously if you have an extract that's 15-30%, then you've got 70% other stuff, which probably includes cellulose. So you want to take out the constituents that maybe are just considered a filler. Cellulose isn't bad for you, but it's not really beneficial either. So kind of, I guess, defining where that line is, right? Because too pure synthetic like Marinol is obviously not safe. And if we're getting too powderized cannabinoids, then we're missing out on terpenoids function.
Right.
Some terpenoids, they can actually increase the efficiency of THC.
Awesome.
They can change your metabolism. They have medicinal benefits themselves. So, I love extracts, but I also don't want to get too close to pharmaceutical in the respect of kind of single bullet, right, versus shotgun is a way I've heard it described.
Yeah, I mean, the whole plant extract aspect of it is really where that synergistic those capabilities come in. Because, I mean, when you're only isolating individual cannabinoids, or if you're trying to then put them back together, you're basically trying to, engineer something that nature's already done and something that already works. And so essentially you're kind of making more work for yourself when all you really need to do is just isolate the constituents that are beneficial and produce those cheaply and consistently.
And keeping them all there, too, is cannabis is very non-toxic, and it is due to that synergy. You know, these other elements, constituents with the cannabinoids, THC, really mitigate those negative effects. And so you want to really keep, as Darwin was saying, that ratio, that profile intact. I mean, you can't beat millions and millions of years of evolution, says Darwin. So I think we're almost to that point.
Alrighty.
I think it was a great show.
Yeah, we covered a lot about hash, butane, what you shouldn't use, what you should use, how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, and Tamar and myself are available for consulting or to essentially help anybody out there who likes to learn more about cannabis science, the extraction sides, or the medicine delivery or interaction side.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening.
Yeah, and tune into Georgia's show tonight at 6, right? Or no, is it 7? It's at 7 to 8 tonight.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone.